every Friday here on Off the Bench. We talk to Cole Cubelic of the SEC Network, brought to you by Emery Jones over there on Jefferson Highway. Stop in and see Tex Morris this morning and tell him you heard it here on OTB with Cole. Cole, good morning. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm not going to make you guys cry like Tom Rinaldi is, but I do appreciate your bumper music there from Snoop Dogg, and it just got me thinking: that's got to be like a top 5 beat all time.
Top 5 for sure. I mean, that entire album,
You think like Hypnotize, Biggie. You think like 99 Problems, Jay-Z. Like just beats that you could lay down for like hours at a time.
Just flexing.
And then
like
I got to thinking too. That Doggy Style CD, do you remember the anticipation for that? Because he was on The Chronic with Dr. Dre, and that was his first album. And, I mean, people went bananas. Like, you were lining up to get the CD, and they had, like, that big, like, cigarette box cardboard thing. You had to buy the CD in.
Great artwork. Great artwork on the front.
Kids will never know what it was like.
I mean, did you
Cole
see?
was just a flex. Just kind of like he wants
you to know.
Just kind of walks the hotel with a J per day.
Yeah.
Just some J's per day. I mean that, not plural. J's per day.
If we're talking Snoop Dogg,
we're talking Jordans.
It can all kind of get cloudy. It can all get kind of cloudy.
We're talking Jordans.
Hey, Rinaldi, you mentioned Rinaldi. How about that skill that he has to just kind of like sit down with you and make you cry?
Oh man, he's incredible. He's a great interviewer, and obviously does his homework. He just seems to find a piece of every story that he wants to go into that nobody else has discussed, brought up, or talked about. And he's just got that like calming demeanor with his voice that just makes you feel good about yourself, makes you feel good about what he's talking about as well.
So, Cole, let's dive in to LSU-Florida, the big dog this weekend. Nobody breaks down line play like you do. And so we'll focus on what many, including myself, maybe think is the most important matchup of this game, and that is LSU's offensive tackles going one-on-one against Florida's defensive ends. What's your read on it?
This is why I like coming on this show, because you already know what we're going to have to talk about before we even talk about it. And I agree. We get all the hoopla and the discussion about these Florida receivers and these LSU DBs and these LSU receivers and these Florida DBs. I think that matchup that you just mentioned probably decides this game. And part of me wonders, with a little bit of Steve Ensminger influence, do we see maybe a little bit of last year's LSU offense sprinkled into this year's offense under Joe Brady, and get some extra tight end help, get some extra running back help to try to widen the pocket for a Jonathan Grenard, try to get the chip on Jonathan Grenard when possible. And let's think about this here. You got a team that's going to throw the football 45, 55, maybe 60 times in this game.
Yeah. That
is a lot of opportunities for the best edge rusher in the SEC to be able to take advantage of two positions that have been inconsistent on this LSU offense. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. The left tackle position has been more inconsistent because there has been a bit of a revolving door there.
Yeah.
Right tackle, I just think Austin Deculus he has struggled at times with speed rushers. So that is a concern for me. And you think about it too. I mean, Joe Brady's going to counter that a little bit. They'll have more quick stuff. They'll throw off that. They'll probably draw off that a little bit. Some Auburn did not do enough of, in my opinion, last week. I really thought that a way to attack that Florida defense was to utilize their speed and athleticism against them. I didn't see enough counters. I didn't see enough throwbacks. I didn't see enough reverse plays, even from emotion, just to potentially show it at times to try to keep those guys engaged in how they need to defend multiple things. And then also, too, I mean, some of the zone read stuff, keep in mind, Joe Burrow can run the ball, and that's a great way to keep those guys honest, is to sort of attack off tackle with different type runs. So I would go right at that. And if you're going to go upfield and you're going to fly around the corner, well, we're going to try to sneak some runs up underneath you. And if you're going to try to play us straight up, well, that's going to give us the time that we need in the pocket. But I do think it's a very intriguing matchup, especially when you go back. I mean, even that Utah State film last week, T-Bob, there are a couple of blitzes that offensive line just doesn't pass off as cleanly as you'd like to see them do it. And we know Grantham is going to bring heat. So that matchup right there is going to have a lot to do with who wins this football game.
Well, and that's something key, Cole, that I haven't even talked about this week, is even if Grantham is only bringing 4 a lot of times, he's still bringing a creative 4. So you have to be able to sort through. You have to be able to pass off even better than that O-line did last week. All right, let's flip it then, Cole. Other side of the ball. This Florida offensive line doesn't seem terribly good this year. But I guess in the same breath, LSU's defensive line has had a lot of injuries. It's tough to know just how good they are. How do you see that matchup playing out?
Yeah, I think we first off, we need to know what we're going to have. I mean, is Rashard Lawrence going to be in the game, and is he going to be
so
85?
right now? Yeah, I don't know if you're 100%, but right now it looks like Lawrence, Chason, and even Logan will all be available.
Yeah, Logan practiced 2 days this week.
And Divinity apparently back too as
Yes,
well, right?
yes.
So okay, let's group all those guys together. And Caleb looked great last week. I mean, go watch the second play of the game. I mean, he tosses the left tackle for Utah State. I clipped that and tweeted it out. So I was like, oh, Caleb's back. That didn't take long.
Cole, inside over there, they say that Patrick Queen, the way he played last week, and he played fantastic, a lot of his big plays were made because of Caleb up front.
And you're going to get certain people that they're going to go check the box score every week, and they're going to say, okay, how's this kid playing? And it's like Derek Brown at Auburn. Like people peed their pants about Derek Brown last week. Well, he recovered 2 fumbles and ran one back like 30 yards. Well, he played well. Well, then nobody talks about it in the Tulane game, but he's forcing cutback runs on every play. He's taking on double teams so his linebackers can scrape cleanly off and go make a play. He's pushing the pocket back so the quarterback can't deliver an accurate pass. You can't just go look at the box score and determine how a young man is playing, because you can affect the game in multiple ways that don't show up in the statistics. And I thought Caleb Vaughn did a nice job with that last week. I thought Patrick Queen played like his hair was on fire last week.
Yeah.
And he looked Devin White-ish in that game against Utah State. And they're going to need that against this team, because I think Dan will have a heavy perimeter attack where he's going to want to throw the ball quickly. They had some really creative perimeter runs. They had that little fake zone read and then like quick speed option that they ran. Actually had success with it against LSU a season ago. So I would expect a lot of that. They're not going to go with the teeth of this LSU defense if they're 40%, 100%, 90%, 80%. Like you said, T-Bob, that offensive line is just not good enough for them to do it. When you go back and look at the Auburn game, the P. Ryan run that went for a long game, that was bounced outside and went. The other run on that little fake option play I told you about, that was a perimeter run.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet they didn't have 20 yards rushing between the tackles against that Auburn defense last week. So even if LSU is not 100% or close to 100% there, they can't make a living there. So they're going to have to find creative ways. And the good news for LSU might be, in Dave Aranda, is that if your front seven is kind of beat up, I think this is a game where you can play nickel probably 85, 90% of the snaps and be okay, because you're not facing a lot of physicality. It's not a team that's going to bully ball you. So even if you got to play Christian Fulton at the nickel and you got to bring in extra DBs, you're fine doing that in this game. And then you don't get the matchup problems that Kevin Steele got with a linebacker on the fastest player on their team the first play of the game that went 80-something yards. And then for the little crosser they scored a touchdown on, that was another one that was a slot receiver on a linebacker. So it may play into Dave Aranda's hands, some of the matchups in this game and the lack of physicality that they're going to see from the Florida offense.
You expect to see more of Emery Jones tomorrow night?
I don't know how you can expect not to. I'll be honest with you, Jordy, I was surprised he came out of the game last week. I mean, he comes in and you're thinking, all right, this has got to be a run-heavy package, and this is going to be some zone read stuff, some quarterback counter power maybe. And then all of a sudden he starts throwing darts. He completes like 3 passes right off the jump. He goes over the middle of the field, throwing accurate balls, and I'm thinking, why would you put Trask back in? You have this kind of a dynamic athlete taking snaps who can break you down in different ways. But obviously they like the way that Trask manages the offense. I think Emery gives you something different. And if you're having trouble gaining yards on the ground, moving the chains, and especially if Florida were to find themselves having some sort of a lead late in this game, I definitely think you'll see more Emery Jones, because then, you got to try to choose some clocks. You got to try to win some field position if you're going to try to sneak out of Death Valley at night with a win.
Give me one take from the Rubik's Cube this week.
Yes, the Rubik's Cubelic.
My bad.
Very surprisingly, the Rubik's Cubelic had Florida +1 this week.
Oh, no. Cole, come on, dude. Cole, come on, bro.
He had a double up with the turnovers. Turnover margin was big. Penalties were I think, in favor of LSU. LSU's been great against the run, but so has Florida. So it was a surprising one for me. But, I mean, I go against the Rubik's Cubelic all the time. That was one that I'm not buying. But I was surprised to see it, to be honest with you.
Have a great call this weekend, man. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Cole. The man.
Cubelic. We'll close it out
Jays
next.
every day.
Off the bench with Kalana and
Plural.
T-Bob.
Plural.